pretty close to what it was when the Garagers lived there. The only thing missing is down the hill in front of the house, they used to have a large area for recreation, tennis courts and things like that. That's all now owned by a cemetery. And but the house has remained pretty much the way it looked, in the 30s and 40s. Yes.
Terry, was when Granger was killed, and then they had to, kind of transition and do all that, do a little tribute show. Was that really a first in radio for them to have to really explain the loss of such a prominent actor?
I can't think, and I might be wrong on this, and certainly Mike might know something, but I can't think of any other show that had a national following that lost a lead actor. And they had a national attention. I mean, when this thing hit, I've got an audio broadcast from the New York Times. It's about 6-7 minutes long, and they open up with funeral type music, and they talk about the loss of Lone Ranger and everything. And then they said, of course, it was only a man that died, not the Lone Ranger, and they go on to, that this is the spirit of the Lone Ranger that survives the man, the actor. But I don't know, I can't think of any other, can you think of any?
Merton March.
Who?
Merton March, one of them died and was replaced.
Merton March.
Yeah. But I can't think of any other that had an impact like this. I mean, the whole country, what are they going to do? And of course, the station, what are we going to do? They went through what's referred to as the transition series. There was 5 broadcasts, 4 of which had no, any references to the Ranger, other than the fact that he had been badly hurt and was recuperating, and you got a whispered kind of groan or whatever. But it wasn't until the 5th of these 5 broadcasts when Beamer emerged, who was an announcer on the show when he joined on November 21st, 1938, is when he first became the announcer of Lone Ranger. And they had similar voices, although they couldn't do the Hi-Ho Silver, so they used the Garage opening for a large period of time.
Were there any that came that some of them?
That I don't know. I don't know if they did an in-house look or not, but I think it was if they did, it would have been a very quick no or a fast no and a very quick look at other actors, because the voices were very similar for so far as the radio listener was concerned between Garager and Beamer. They were very close, and a lot of people didn't notice a change, initially. Now they certainly were different physical statures. I've got, contrary to what a lot of people have seen, only 2 or 3 pictures ever of Garager, and usually he always has his mask on. I have a variety of photos of Garager. I knew some of the family that lived near the Garagers and knew them privately. They were just like your next door neighbor. And I've met a number of individuals over the years, and I think I'm down now to only one lady who still lives in the Farmington Hills area. And she used to go with them on the Bottle Boat, which was a big thing in Detroit, to go down to Rocio Park and stuff. These 2 were excursion boats, all night dancing on boats and stuff on the river. And she had a number of photographs that she turned over to me a few years back, showing Garager on the boat. Typical, at the beach, at the lake, with his wife and Gabrielle, their daughter, who was only, I think she was 9 months old when he was killed. The daughter is still alive today. Garager's wife died, and this is one of these things, and if you ever want to write about anything or do any kind of research, do not delay, do not delay, do not delay. For a number of years, I kept thinking, well, I've been to Garager's grave. Nobody's buried next to him. So that I come to a conclusion there's only 2 conditions that could possibly be for the wife, the widow. That is that she's either 1, still alive, or 2, married to somebody else, maybe buried somewhere else. So I never really followed through onto it until a few years ago when I finally got a lead that she was living, and I got a phone number from one of her friends, and who had gone to church with the Garagers for a number of years before he was killed. And she met and married somebody in the church that they attended in Detroit, and they moved. Well, by the time I finally called, I got him, and she had died 2 years before. So, and he said she never talked about it, never. It's not something I guess you'd bring up with the second husband, is all these great memories of the first I can't believe that Gabrielle would have gone up, especially through her teen years, and not be curious about Daddy, even though she's always referred to the second husband as Dad. So I was a little disappointed not being able to talk to Mrs. Roger direct, but
Let me ask two questions. Number one, you were talking about the early shows, how it began January 31st and all that. How many of those are still in existence?
None.
Do they go all the way back?
None.
When did they
the
start?
recording started in '38, and I'm going to get to a point on that, which is another major mistake that collectors have made over the years about, they have these November 1933 shows, they do not. But I'll get to that a little bit later.
And you'll probably get to my other question is, when did it go national?
I'll get to that here in a minute, too. The only other actor out of the 6 actors that portrayed the Lone Ranger on radio did it once on March 29, 1954, and that was the program at that moment announcer, Fred Foy. And he did a show called Burley Scott's Sacrifice. Beamer had laryngitis that night, and Fred told me that at the end of the performance, Beamer told him he would never get laryngitis again. He never missed another performance. Fred likes to think of this as great acting style, although he thinks secretly that Beamer thought he did a terrible job, but I have the show, the actual recording stuff, and I've been very fortunate on a couple of occasions to participate in the recreation of that show with Mr. Foy, who I've known now for probably 30 years, and he does an excellent job, even doubling as narrator in this, he still does an excellent job. Moving on past the massive mistake on the giveaway, WXYZ formed an alliance on January 17, 1934 with WOR in Newark, WGN in Chicago, and WLW in Cincinnati, and they formed a quality network, and the Lone Ranger was one of the keystone pieces. It wasn't the reason for the forming, but it was one of the keystone pieces. The Quality Network went on to change its name on September 29, 1934 to a small network called Mutual. They had been formed on the 15th of September, but they went nationwide on the 29th, and the Lone Ranger was one of the key pieces, almost in direct opposition to Red Ryder and a few other shows that were gaining some real prominence. They had a variety of multi-part storylines on the series. The first one was a 10-part story line that aired on January 26, 1934. Most of the multi-part stories were 2- and 3-parters. It naturally blended itself to, they did it Monday through Friday and finished it up. A few of them were 5-parters, a couple of 4-parters. And they seemed to like that pretty well, multi-stories, and they kept the audience coming back. An interesting date, on May 22nd, 1934, Frank Stryker sold his rights to WXYZ and Mr. Trendle. It's in my blog. It's a little bit of the verbiage of what was said in the contract, but basically he signed over any and all rights, ownerships, and things to that he had a hand in on the Lone Ranger, a series called The Manhunters, and a series called Thrills of the